There was once a time when you could go out to a store and buy a game, and that entire game would be on that disc or cartridge, in a full package with all of its bells and whistles. Any extras or bonuses that weren't mentioned or were considered secrets would have to be unlocked and earned, and most of the time you found out this new information through your friends and talking to other people, or in like gaming published magazines. There was no infinite source of information to tell you how to do it, and eventually, with enough playtime hours, you would find everything the game had to offer, and the game would be over. For a video that could also be called Gaming Before the Internet, DLC, or downloadable content, completely changed the gaming landscape forever, and nothing has come close to shifting the video game industry like DLC has. Unlike my normal videos where we are counting sales numbers and looking at dates of certain releases and which games had the most impact in shifting the zeitgeist, or which development company had the most success and influence with using DLC and updates, or how the use of the internet created a completely different experience when buying a game and how that game will develop over time, I kind of want this just to be a discussion. A look back on a time that no longer is. For most of you out there are like two camps, right? Two majority groups. People who have been playing games before the mass spike of the internet and have been around like during the 90s and saw the major shift happen. And then you have the second camp, the complete opposite of that group. The people who grew up during the time of the internet where DLC and new updates are a given. But then, I like to think there is a smaller, well maybe not smaller, but a third group out there that was in the middle of all this and didn't quite understand what was going on or what was happening. Maybe because they were too young to understand, or the internet had just spiked and some people were still getting used to this new thing, and that's the camp I think I fall into. That's the third group I think I grew up in. See, when I was a kid, I had a PS2 that was never hooked up to the internet. Ever. Honestly, I don't think anything in our house growing up was connected to the internet besides the computer. The foxhole I lived in was located in a more rural area than most. My family wasn't in the big city or anything like that, so access to the internet was rare and, more importantly, very slow. The internet didn't excite me as much as my older brother who grew up in the 90s and my younger nieces and nephews and cousins who would eventually grow up with it. It was slow and finicky to me. For someone like me, computers could be scary and dangerous, so I kind of just stayed away till I had a better understanding into my teenage years. The reason I am saying all this is because I grew up playing games on a PS2 and eventually a PS3 and Wii with no connection to the internet, unlike the rest of my generation. I had no idea what I was missing. Oh my god, I consider myself a gamer, and I was only experiencing like 10% of what the world of gaming had to offer, much less the internet, with my whole generation being obsessed with at the time. When I got to middle school and was finally in class with other animals with my own interests, I had no idea what they were talking about. It was almost like a foreign language. Internet memes, playing together online with games like COD, GTA, and Forza. I mean, I was so hyper-focused on just single-player games that my brother played, like Assassin's Creed and Uncharted, or Nintendo games that my parents would allow me to buy, like Zelda and Mario, that I had never experienced anything like what they were saying. So one day, a friend of mine came over to my house, and my family had just moved to the city that year, so I'm about to enter probably into Animal Kingdom High School the next year, and this friend I invited over wanted to play Call of Duty. I think the most recent one out was probably Black Ops 2, so this would have been 2012, 2013, and keep in mind I have been playing a PS3 that has never even heard of the internet. So we start up the game, and he immediately sees my menu screen pop up, and he has like so many questions, instantly confused. See, I guess the next COD was going to release soon, right? So BO2 already had a bunch of updates, and my version was ancient. I mean, day one version out of the box. Never even heard of an update. Online multiplayer? No. Split screen co-op was all I ever knew. And my friend was about as mind blown as I was. He was mind blown. I was mind blown. So he asked me, have you ever updated the game? Ever? And I responded accordingly. You can update a game? And his jaw drops like a cartoon, just visibly drops in front of me. So he exits the game and goes to the options menu and tries to update it and realizes there's no option to update the game because my console is, of course, without internet. So he asked me if I know the Wi-Fi password, and like, I don't even have a smartphone, so I have to go to my mom and ask her for the Wi-Fi. She gives it to me, and next thing I know, my friend, for the first time ever, connects my PS3 to the internet and initiates the first update. Dude, my PlayStation went Super Saiyan. It took a whole hour, or like maybe just 20 minutes, but it felt like an hour. A, because my internet is really slow, and B, because of how behind it was on updates. I had to set up a whole PSN account. I was just using my brother's the whole time, and I didn't even know these consoles had a digital store. no idea, much less I didn't have to go to an actual store to buy a game. Everything was right here in front of me. A whole new world had opened up. Later on that night would be the first time I ever experienced online multiplayer in any game, much less the prime of Call of Duty Online. So the reason behind this whole story is that this was the first time I heard the term DLC and understood exactly what that meant. After updating the game, I saw tons of these ads for the PS Store to buy various DLC packages. My friend recommended me buying the pack that featured the Zombies map, Origins, and other multiplayer maps that came with it. That would be probably the best decision of my entire life. I love the original Zombies crew, and playing only like the base maps of BO2 with the Terminus crew was kind of a letdown for someone like me, and I have access to the DLC, so I was only playing those like first 3 maps. So with that opening cutscene of Origins reintroducing the Primus crew, the excitement in my body could not handle itself. I was going nuts. This started my love for COD Zombies and finding the community on YouTube and online. I spent the rest of my night updating all the games I had that needed updates, and that's when I realized Call of Duty and other games were still playable at a time with their base versions when DLC and online multiplayer were taking off. Now, that wouldn't happen nowadays at all, but it shows you that the shift wasn't as drastic and fast as we look back on now. It was all just a slow build-up. I still had games on my PS3 that never needed to update. I beat all 3 Uncharted games and all 3 Assassin's Creed games in the Ezio trilogy, plus more, all with the base versions of the games. Countless other games that offered DLC and other new features via updates, but you didn't have to yet. It wasn't a must yet. It wasn't a gaming necessity. Games are still being made fully playable on release, till completion with the base version, 1.000.000, however you want to say it. Nowadays, you have to update the game. For online games, you have to. In order to play online, which of course is the biggest incentive of an online multiplayer game, and some single-player games have necessary updates because devs are allowed now to just publish whatever they want, even if the game isn't fully playable on its base version. Single-player games can be released without being fully able to complete. That's crazy. That would never happen back in the day. Take most games in like the N64, GameCube, PS1 era, and most of the Wii and PS2 games could all be completed 100% platinum trophied, whatever you want to call it, with the base version fresh out of the box. Think about that. Think about that concept that just doesn't exist anymore. And I feel that's a time I don't even notice was swept up from under me. One day, I could play a Call of Duty campaign without even needing to update the game, but now I have to make sure I have a stable internet connection to even look at the menu screen. It's insane. We could get into game sizes and all that, and requiring a console to be connected to the internet to work, and all of that for another time. This is mainly just the initial shift in introduction to the new gaming landscape that we see today. Single-player games were given the chance to extend the life of their games with DLC and give gamers a new story or experience. Multiplayer games and later live service games could also extend a game's life and keep people playing their game by continuous updates and new features added later on. This was a needed shift, a needed change. Just like the battle pass that we have talked about before, the gaming landscape is always shifting and there's always going to be something new to come along and shake up the industry. But the ability to connect your console to the internet and fix a game or change it after its release will always, always, always be one of the biggest impacts in gaming history. Thank you all so much for watching. If you like this video, don't hesitate to like and subscribe to join the Foxhole and stay up to date with my newest videos I make. I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.